Exactly. Today, we're going to be starting off with project cost management, and it will be beautiful, though we have started introducing costs right from the onset of the project, because everything we do is tied to money. Right from the very first day that the project manager is contracted, money had been discussed. Right from the day that the need is identified and a consultant is contracted to carry out the market research to put together the business case, money has started being discussed. So today we will take a look at this knowledge area as a project cost management. It is very important. This is one constraint you may have when you embark on project, the financial constraint, cost constraint. So, like being introduced in previous knowledge area, we told ourselves that project management has knowledge areas that we are expected to demonstrate expertise. We talked about the project integration management. We looked at project scope management, and in project scope management, we looked at two kinds of scope, the product scope and the project scope. And I said the project scope has to do with the work required and only the work required to complete the project work and ensuring that the business objectives are realized. Then the product scope has to do with the features of the final product that we have been contracted to create. And I also reminded us that project is a temporary endeavor that is undertaken to create a unique product, services, or result. And then the temporariness, like I said, is very important. How temporary should our project be has to do with the requirements we would gather. And we are not expected to spend more than the required time, for everything we do is tied to money. And in that knowledge area, we talked about how estimates can be, time estimate can be gotten. I introduced the parametric estimate. I also introduced the analogous estimate and also the 3-point estimate in varying conditions, where which we looked at the PERT, the project evaluation and review techniques. And we said it is optimistic plus 4 times the most likely plus the pessimistic, all divided by 6. That is how we can carry out parametric estimate. And we told ourselves that the analogous estimate is beautiful because it has to do with historical information, but it is less accurate when compared with the parametric estimate and the 3-point estimate. Though they all have their varying time where which they are to be used in the inception of the project, that is the initiating process area, we can speculate based on historical knowledges of previous related or similar projects. And that accuracy is like plus 25% or minus 75%. That's the only time, the beginning of the project, that's the only time we can use that kind of estimate to give a perception of how much would be required, to give a perception of the budget. Then when we dive into the planning phase, what happens? We may want to ensure that we are getting clearer perspective as regards cost. And all these are things we talked about. And today, we want to talk about money. We want to talk about the cost of our project. We want to talk about the activities and how the financial estimations would be concluded. Whereas nothing is going to be new here aside the end value analysis and the end value management. We've laid foundation. Like I said, from the onset of the project, we've started talking about money, cost. Yeah. So we are here today. Let's move on to see these knowledge areas. And I need you to pay attention because We are the critical parts of the training. Most of your interview questions, most would come from areas like this. Some of you may be required to go over and over this knowledge area when the video is being published, and ensuring that everything mentioned are gotten clearly. Yeah. Okay. Oh, somebody said there is an echo which is not helping, please. Can you kindly confirm now if the echo, you are still getting the echo? Let me know.
I don't get it anymore. I know earlier there was on my end, but not anymore.
Okay, no echoes on your end, right?
No, not at this time.
Okay, all right. G, that came from you. Is it clear now? Or you're still getting the echoes? It's better. You know, G, you logged in with 2 lines. That's your challenge. So when you log in with 2 lines in the same building, you may be facing issues. I don't know how you got that done, but just see what you can do about that. Okay, one is off. Now kindly confirm in the chat room like you did if the echoes had gone down. Well, I'm going to be working with that is better that you previously said. Yes, it has. Oh, beautiful. Okay, project cost management. Now, in this knowledge area, we want to look at the processes that has to do with estimating, those processes that has to do with budgeting, those processes that has to do with controlling of costs. So we would be able to complete the project within the approved budget. And for us to get this done, there are sub-processes we must understand. The first one is the plan cost management. Second, we estimate cost. Third, we determine budgets. Fourth, we control costs. So briefly, these are the 4 sub-processes that we would be dealing with. When we say plan cost management, like you know, everything we do starts with planning. In this process, we establish the policies, we establish the procedures, and the documentation for planning, and how we will be able to manage cost and execute and control the project cost. That is what we do here, coming up with processes that has to do with what? Managing, planning, and executing, controlling project cost. This is where all the financial policies are formed. Who approves what? Who is allowed to execute what? Is stated here. All the definitions of the kind of currencies that would be used. When we say $100, $1,000, what do we mean? Do we mean $99 plus 10 additional dollars for contingencies? All of that may be agreed here. So now estimating costs. Now in this process, we develop an approximation of the monetary resources needed to complete the individual activities. Once this is done, the next phase is to determine budget. When we say determine budget, what do? We just add up all the cost for the individual activities, and that gives us the total budget of the project. Though we have some techniques to be able to control things at certain times. Now the budget is being determined, which means we have a budget declared. Like I said, we just add up. So it's an aggregation of the estimated cost of the individual activities, an aggregated cost of the work packages, and the budget is declared $40 billion. So now that you have a budget, you start your project. When you start your project, what happens? You ensure that you control costs. And in this process, you want to monitor the status of the project, and update the project budget, manage changes. That has to do with the cost baseline. The cost baseline is the agreed upon budget that speculates the day-to-day spending. And the cost baseline has to do with the S-curve. We will see it. So it is very in the beginning that you can influence cost. When money has not been spent, is when you can plan very well and rule out certain unneeded things, right? But by the time you start buying, start creating, start pricing, start additional money, you may not be able to control cost because you have already lost some money. There is a knowledge in this area that we say a project manager is not allowed to chase expended funds. And this is what we call the sunk cost. Professionally, they may want to ask you during your interview, how do you chase sunk cost? Which means money that had already been invested into resources, materials, and other things. How do you chase it? All you have to say is that you don't chase it. Because it requires more money to chase money. Whose account are you going to do that? Why at the end of the day, you're not being able to realize that for what happens? You have lost more. So what do? You try to manage the remaining work as against the funds that is remaining. The cost management process and the associated tools and techniques are usually selected during the project lifecycle definition and are documented in the cost management plan. The cost management plan is the very first sub-process which we talked about. For example, it will have the level of accuracy. Like I said, when we say $90 or $100, what do we mean? Do we mean $90 and then an additional $10 for contingency purpose? So level of accuracy is activity cost estimate will adhere to a rounding of the data to a prescribed precision. Can you see that? Anytime you see 90, call it 100. Anytime you see 110, say 100. These are decisions that are made. This will enable us, or anytime you see 110, you call it 120. There is no 95, there is no 90, but 100. Then there are units of measures that must be used, and each unit using measurements could be hourly rate, days, or maybe weeks. When we talk about a unit cost, do we mean 1 week or 1 hour or 1 day? These are called the staff hours, the staff period. So the project management plan has all these in it. These decisions about all these things are made. The organizational procedures links for the control accounting. And each control account is assigned a unique code or account numbers that links activity to the performing organization's accounting system. Now, this is simple. I know when we juggle between verbiages like this, it seems to want to move us away from reality. But let me bring us back. When we say control account, that is every activity in the budget, every activity in the project, and what it will cost must be linked to the organization, the department, and their budget. So if something beautiful is happening to reader, something good is happening to the account of that department, and also is influencing that institution. And that's that. You may want to check that for them. So everything has a control threshold. There are times junior workforces may have the right to make decisions about $50. I remember my first project, I was given a card of $5,000, which means I have the right to make decisions around $5,000, whereas we had others that can make decisions around $1 million. So any job that I am on that the decision will be more than $5,000, I must escalate it to somebody higher than me. That is the meaning of control threshold. Peradventure, we have a planned value and the actual recordings is 10% away. The policy may state that it should be escalated. So these are variance thresholds for monitoring and cost performance. So it's very important. And certain times it's expressed in percentage deviation from the baseline. So the rule of performance measurement, that is how performances can be measured. You must come up with policies. You don't want to now start measuring performance without a yardstick. And when we talk about performance measurement in project cost management, we are talking about end value management. There is no interview that you will do in this world that a question about the end value management would not come. So the rule of performance measurement must be enacted. That's to say that you define, that's a procedure. Can you see that you define the work breakdown structure and points at which the measurement of the control account will be performed? You establish the end value management technique. You specify the end value management computation equations for determining the project estimate at completion. Now, this sounds so foreign, right? Estimate at completion is another name for budgeting. This is the estimate at when we are supposed to complete the project. That's the local word for it. That is the name for the total budget, estimate at completion, which means by the time that we are through with this project, this is how much we have estimated that we could have spent. That is estimate at completion. So we will look at other terminologies and we will put these things together as the formulas to want to calculate our performance measurement. As we move on, we will be familiar with them. To somebody somewhere, these are sounding like some foreign languages, I know, but we just have to be patient a little as we try to break things down. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. And we have done the introduction. Now let's start plan cost management, which is the very sub-process in the project cost management. That is the first thing we ought to do. Plan cost management, like I said, is the process that establishes the policies, the process that establishes the procedures and documentation for managing, executing, and controlling the project cost. It has some beautiful benefits. It ensures that the cost management processes and the associated tools and techniques and outputs are documented in the cost management plan. At this point, we should be familiar with what an input is. Input is just like the things you need to get things done. These are input. Output are the things you want to achieve at the end of what you are doing. Tools and techniques are the things you will use in manipulating those inputs to get your output. Very important. So in this plan cost management, what do we have as our first input? You want to come up with a cost management plan. What do you need? You need the project charter. For the sake of those that are just joining us today, the project charter is this tiny 1 to 3 page document that speculates every part of the project in a high level. And it has to do with the business case justification. It has to do with the budget, preliminary budget. If it is a building, maybe the high-level drawings, the cost, the quality speculated, and the time frame that the project could have been completed. And now this project charter is the document used to authorize the project manager. And who are the people contracting the project manager? First, the project owners. These are the ones called the sponsors, those whose money are being used to achieve the deliverables. If the project manager is part of an organization, his own organization will give him this project charter. But most times the project manager is contracted to even develop it because of the due diligence that is needed to get it done. Once you have the project charter, remember things are in the ambiguous level, things are at the higher level. You move on to the project management plan level, and you still would want to look at the activities that are speculated in the project management plan to understand which policies, which procedures that will be most appropriate to achieve that. So these are 4 inputs: project charter, project management plan, enterprise environmental factors, and organizational process assets as our input. Our tools requires expert judgment. Why expert judgment? People with experience, people with knowledge are required to turn these 4 inputs into this single output, that is the cost management. Like we said, project management is the application of knowledge, tools, techniques to achieve project requirement. So somebody must know something. Somebody must use something to get it done. And one of those things we must use has to do with our organizational process assets. So having done that, the data that have been harvested must be analyzed. And when we do that, we meet. There's a meeting between personnel, and at the end of the day, the cost management plan is created. This is a guide. The cost management plan is a guide, any kind of guide. For your own project, it may be higher level. For this other person's project, it may be very, very detailed. It doesn't matter, but do not spend all the time thinking about it and then you run out of time. Ensure that you use the appropriate time to get things done in this area. So when we want to analyze data after during the project cost management, what are the things we are doing? We will review the strategic funding options. Is it self-funding, or we are funding with equity? Are we funding with debt? If you're funding with debt, you know that you would ensure that you come up with some certain policies that will speculate the payback. If you're funding with equity, also is beautiful, different kind. If it is self-funding, you just still have to know that. And then we consider ways to acquire the project resources. When we say consider ways, what are we saying? It is in this area we looked at make or buy analysis. I'm going to use something in hand. When we are growing up, our parents would use us to manage their businesses. And we're so many in our house rather, that we can get the job of 100 men done within hours. So we are stakeholders in the family. We are workforces in the family. So we are not buying workforces from an external source. That is hire or make You're using your own in-house workforces to get the job done, and you're making savings. So that's what you do. But why would you want to use in-house workforces to get things done? One, when the people in-house has the expertise to get the job done, or we do not have the money to hire people from outside. Then another area, the make or buy, you are set out to build an edifice. You mold blocks. You need blocks rather. Do you use your workforces to mold those blocks, or you buy them from outside? Sometimes you make them yourself, not because you do not have the money. One, because you never want your trade secrets to go out. You want to keep it within. That area is your core area. You don't want to take it outside and give them some specifications to get it done. No, you want to ensure that the knowledge stays within. You make it yourself. And sometimes we do lease or buy analysis in this area. When the project is short, do you invest in capital structures? No. A 3-month project, you cannot raise a structure for 3 months project. You better hire, you better rent. All the tools that you would need, the spaces, you hire or you rent. But if it is something that will last for 7 years, 8 years, 20, 30 years, the policy goes in honing at this time. You can outrightly buy and know that it belongs to you. At that time, your capital investment would be more. Your running cost will be less. But in a place where you are hiring, your running cost goes up, right? So this is about CapEx and OpEx. So having said this, we can now take a look at our output, which is the cost management plan. The cost management plan has some component, like I said, the level of accuracy, the unit of measurement. You must agree here if it is dollar that is being used, if it is 1 hour or 2 days that you use in measuring the unit work, and all the organizational procedure links, like I said, everything you do in the course must be tied to a policy somewhere. That's how it works. Must be tied to the procedure somewhere. Yeah. That is very important to get done. The rules of performance measurement and even the reporting format. How do you report? Do you know that when it has to do with money, they report with some coded verbiages? Not everybody will see those reports and understand them. And in what format? Are you sending an email? It's going to be phone call, text messages, or a memo? A memo. Let me pronounce it the right way. Okay, I haven't gotten the project cost management. What is left? I haven't gotten the project cost management plan. We move on to start carrying out the estimation. Now we want to consider those policies as we come up with the financial approximation of the individual activities. So estimate cost is the process of developing an approximation of the monetary resources needed to complete the project activities. These are like predictions, but we must ensure that the data we have to analyze will give us closeness to reality. And I told us that we have some strategies, some tools and techniques, like parametric estimate, one bottom-up estimate. We have the PRT, the project evaluation and review technique. We have the analogous estimate, like I said, and all of these have their own level of accuracies. They all have their own level of accuracies. Yeah. If you can hear me, just kindly unmute and say, yeah, I can hear you right on.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on. So you have that. Now I told us about the level of accuracy, right? Cost trade-offs are being done, which means decisions made in one area can save money in another area. Decision made in certain areas can financially affect other areas. These are called trade-offs. So cost trade-offs and risk must be considered, such as make versus buy. Like I said, are we making it? Like when we are growing up in the house, I told us they didn't hire additional hands to come and help out in running their businesses. We did it ourselves in the family. So by so doing, the huge investment that could have been lost in salaries were reinvested back into the business, and not too long, growth started coming in. So make versus buy. There are some specifications you will come up with in the things you want to design. You cannot find a contractor that can get that done for you. So in such cases, you now start training your workforces to get it done, to do the job, carry out the job in-house, because there's nobody elsewhere that can do it. I know you have heard the word, anything worth doing well is worth doing yourself, right? That's what is here now, make or buy. So that is about that. So for example, a project in the initiation, like I said, would have a rough order estimate, and the level of accuracy will be either minus 25% or plus 75%. So this is too vague. And such an estimate, a rough order estimate, and we get it from historical knowledge. You are looking at a project that looks like the one in hand, and you say this project costs us $50,000 or $50 million. This one we are doing now would not be far away from there. So you now say, okay, let's budget $50 million. Things have changed. No two projects can be the same. It doesn't matter the design. The two projects may be the same, the structures may be the same, but the places of implementation may be different, and that also would have its own peculiarity. And that is why we learned the enterprise environmental factors. And most times we use the enterprise environmental factors as our input. Can you see it here? Number 3, as our enterprise environmental factors. Then the organizational process asset. So these are tools, inputs rather, that are needed. We must lay hands on the project management plan. We must look for all the project documents. We must analyze the enterprise environmental factors, and we need the organizational process assets. Like I said, what are the organizational process assets? When it has to do with cost estimates or cost estimation, do you have a template? Do you have a document that speculates all the quantities, like what they call the BOQ, the bill of quantity? Do you have a document that can, tell you the prices of things in the market? So you can just sit down wherever you are and start allotting prices, and yet they would still be accurate. So we would be looking at the tools and techniques. We have expert judgment. We have analogous estimating. And no, you are not new to it, because I've explained it. That has to do with historical knowledges. Yeah, but statistical, we are still balancing statistics with it. We are using historical knowledge to speculate the increase or the diminishing of the market, to want to come up with an approximation of the individual activities. And I told us about the parametric estimate, which is more accurate. Here we are dragging out the rulers, we are dragging out the tapes, we are measuring things. And when you measure, what happens? You don't make mistakes. It becomes more accurate. Then we have the bottom-up estimating. Bottom-up estimating is an aggregation. Then we have the 3-point estimate that are told us as our tools, which has to do with the most likely. We will see them in the future. It has to do with the optimistic. It has to do with the pessimistic. And also, when we have all this, we analyze the data that we have. And then we need the project management information system. All these things are done with softwares like the Primavera or the MS project. And very soon, very, very soon, I think after 2 weeks from now, or 2.5 weeks from now, we could have gotten to the level and we start learning the Primavera, and you will now see all these things coming alive. So with all this, we can make decisions. We can make decisions. And at the end of the day, 3 outputs will be gotten. The cost baseline. The cost baseline is very important. That is the S-curve. That cost baseline shows you how much is spent from the beginning of the project till the end. I will show you the diagram. Then the basis of estimation. Every estimate you make, you must write down the basis. So somebody can see and understand, oh yeah, it is because of this and that. They say this will cost this. The project document at the end of the day will be updated now that we have cost baseline and some basis of estimates. New document, right? So all our project document will be updated, reflecting the estimates which we have. It's a hard put. So now let's dive in. What are they? In the project management plan, what document do we need? We want to cite the scope baseline. So this is made up of the scope statement, scope baseline. I want to put this in your head. On project, they may not be this intelligent to ask you a question like this. On, let me say, on the project interview, they may not ask you technical question like this. But if peradventure you want to go for the PMP exams, these are things that systematically they'll be playing with. Said the scope baseline, that is the agreed upon scope, right? This is made up of scope statements, the work breakdown structure, and the work breakdown structure dictionary. Now, when we say work breakdown structure, the work breakdown structure has to do with the hierarchical decomposition of the scope into smaller, more manageable packages. And I told us that the least level of this, the work breakdown structure is called the work packages. Now, what are the work breakdown structure dictionary? These are attributes of the individual items or in the work breakdown structure, their definition, their characteristics, who's going to get them done, where they are found, and you have all this. So all these should be considered when developing the cost estimate. That's why we want to see the project management plan. How do you estimate a thing without knowing the scope of the work? Can you do that? How do you want to price a product without understanding the quality and what is in there? So the project documents that would be updated and that are needed includes the lessons learned register for previous projects, or maybe even in the projecting, and you could have learned some new tricks, techniques. So you need all these things to get your business done properly. You want to cite the project schedule because time is money. You want to see when what will be done. Is it during the raining season, the dry season? Is it during when things could have been cheaper in the market? Is it during? No, you want to see the timing of all those activities so you know how much they would cost. There are certain times in the year that certain things would be cheaper or be more expensive. And for you to plan the cost, you want to see the resource requirement, that activity. If it is research, what kind of research will tell you how much it will cost, the things that are needed. Are we traveling to wherever? Are we digging? Would there be some archaeological excavations? If you don't know that, how do you estimate? How do you come up with the cost? So that's why we need all these documents and the risk register. The risk register has all the identified risk speculated. So this will guide you. Risk can be wastage. Risk can be scarcity. Risk can be unqualified workforces in the market. So when you take a look at the risk register, if it is unqualified workforces, you must ensure that you allot money for trainings. Your budget has gone up. So I want all of us to be discussing at this level. This is a strategic top level. When you talk at this level, this is what senior management want to hear during your interviews. They want to hear you communicate at this level. I don't want you to be so tactical that you are like a technician, that you are, if you cannot see screwdriver, you cannot talk. People want to see your insight about the business. That's why I told you that the project manager's expertise has to do with his leadership prowess. It has to do with his domain knowledge and his business inclinations. These three things. Let's move on. So we have the organizational process asset as our input, the enterprise environmental factors. The enterprise environmental factors to tell us about the standards, the regulatory requirements, the government positions, the market conditions, and all of that. Why the organizational process asset has to do with the templates, and we have both internal and external. It has to do with the template and certain other things. The processes which we have that will enable us achieve things quickly, with less stress or with less money. So what are the tools? These are very important. If you can understand these tools that we want to talk about, you are good. Now let's move on. Data analysis. What data are you analyzing? The techniques that can be used for what? These processes include alternative analysis. What is alternative analysis? What are the different ways you can get certain things done that will enable you, escape some challenges, that will enable you escape some cost and maybe get it done better? These are alternatives that you must analyze and come up with the best plan. Even the reserve analysis. What we have left, can they carry us till the end of the project? That is reserve. And we have two kinds of reserves that I told us about. And these reserves are called the contingencies reserve and the management reserve. I don't want to talk about them, so we'll not move into the future and we now see them and now we have to talk about them again. Then there is cost of quality. There's cost of quality, right? The cost of quality is what is required to get the job done at the first try. The cost of quality is what is required to get the job done without rework. The cost of quality is the cost of success. The cost of quality is the cost of failure. If you know how much it will cost you if the project fails, you can now understand how much you will put together to ensure that the project does not fail. We've talked about the project management information system. These are tools like the softwares you use to send out informations and also your decision-making techniques. All these are tools needed. Decision-making, the technique that can be used for this process include what? But it's not limited to what? Voting. When 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, 10 people are in a team and they are coming up with varying opinion, you know that you must ensure that you come up with ways like majority takes the day and before you make your decisions. Okay, Lachima, you're welcome to the house. So, yeah. So our output becomes the activity cost estimate. You see, you have a cost estimate, and these are quantitative assessment of the probable cost required to complete the project work. Can you hear it? Probable, which means there may be reasons or needs to have them changed. They may be speculating actual or maybe deviating a little. That's why we say they are probable. So cost estimate can be presented in summary or in detail. Costs are estimated for all resources that are applied to the activity cost estimate. The basis of estimate is important. You need some knowledge, some documents that will support the reason why you say that activity would cost $40,000. All of your assumptions must be written down. Any challenge, any known constraints must be written down in the basis of estimates. Then this next phase, what do we do? It's aggregation. Can you see it here? Cost aggregation. This next phase is called the determined budget. In this process, we aggregate the estimated cost. Is it not? You come up with a list of things you want to buy, right? You come up with a list of things you want to achieve and how much they will cost. So how do you know how much the budget? The budget is to do plus and minus. That's all. It's this simple. But sometimes we may have lots of activities and their individual costs. So we may not be able to bring out our calculators and be pressing them one by one. That's why we need the tools that will enable us get this done. Sometimes when we have it entered in the Excel sheets, the Primavera, and then we have them being formatted, automatically they do this aggregation for us. So another word for the budget is the cost baseline. It's the cost baseline, and it's an S-curve. I'll show you a diagram to explain that. For everything that must be carried out, there is a funding requirement. A project may be declared to be $40 million, and the project that will last for 1 year. What do we mean by funding requirement? Every day. How much do we need every day? In the very first month, how much do we need? We may even need 90% of the total budget in the very first month, and the remaining 10 budget can spread over 10% can spread over the period of 11 months. So these are the funding requirements. Somebody who is not so conversant with this process, with the funding requirement, may be thinking, since the project is $40 million and it's 12 months, all I need to do is to ensure that I have $3,750 every month. Whereas month one, $36,075 is required for month one, and the remaining $3,250 may be, or $750 may be required to fund the project. That's why you need your funding requirement. If you don't understand that, your project will not be successful. Okay, we understand what the project management plan is as our input. We want to see the cost management plan because we are still talking about budgeting. So we need to see the cost management plan. We need to see the resource management plan. We want to see the scope baseline in it. And all the project documents that we must cite includes the basis of estimate that we just got as an output. The costs that have been estimated. These are the costs we want to add up, right? They are the ones we want to aggregate. And even the project schedule, like I said, time is money. What a particular material will cost today may not be the cost of it tomorrow. So you want to know when it will be used. Yeah. Okay, G, I'm going to answer you. You said, do you share notes? Yeah, we share notes, but the videos are recorded. So you can go back and watch those videos that you have not seen and bring yourself up to speed. We still share notes. All right. So the risk register also. Yeah. The risk register has all the identified risk. Now, do we identify risk? We don't take our torchlight and be raising tables and shifting cupboards and be looking for risk. No, we sit down and think through. And some of the ways we get this done is just that question, what if? What if? What if, as we say, let's sit down and put this research together and we drop the document on the table as we are talking? A shark just jumped out of the river and into our office and grabbed the document and go back to the river. What are we going to do? Is it possible? The possibility of that is very, very low. It's like 0 to, that is not. But if we find out that the possibility is like 1 or 2 out of 10, how we now know, okay, the possibility is 2 out of 10. Okay, how much is that document? How much will it cost us? $10 million. So that is 0.2 multiplied by $10 million. 0.2 multiplied by $10 million gives us what? $2 million. So if we are coming up with a risk response strategy, it means that $2 million must be the contingency, the money we put aside. Peradventure, that shark comes out of the river and carries our document. We know we have $2 million ready to replace it. Then we may look at it and say, we don't want to spend $2 million. Is there no way we can put nets around with $500 that will make the sharks not to be able to jump out of the river and even come into our office and get, if there's a way, we now vote what? $5,000 as our contingency reserve. So for everything that has to do with that document, when we are through with our calculation, we plus what? $5,000 for net. So that's that. That's that. So the business document includes the business case and also the benefit management plan. Then we have the enterprise environmental factors. We've talked about it so much. And the tools needed is the cost aggregation, like I said, plus. We look at the historical relationship among what we are doing and what has been done before to come up with an estimate. We look at the historical relationship that has to do with the parametric estimate and also the analogous estimate to make definition, a decision rather, of how much the project will cost. We talked about funding requirement. Now there's what is called funding limit reconciliation. Can you see that? Now the expenditure of the funds should be reconciled with any funding limit on the commitment of funds for the project. What does that mean? It's a tool. The expenditure of funds should be reconciled with any funding limit. You ensure that you plan the project in a way. I told you that month 1, the owner of the job may be required to spend 90% of the money. But what if he does not have 90% and he can only bring out 10% in month 1, month 2, 15%, month 3, according to his expectations? What do? You ensure that the job plans for that time must not be more than 10%. That is funding limit reconciliation. This is a project management technique. It's a strategic technique. If you don't understand it and you move on to a project, you will not be thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? You plan according to how much you are expecting. We do that in our families, right? Then you write the list. Then you write the list. You're expecting 160. You're expecting how much? Maybe $130,000. And you now started writing. Excitement carries you. You now went to go write $165,000. $1,000. Wow. You must go back to look at it and come up with what? The reconciliation according to how much you are expecting. I'm speaking from experience. That is when you hear cut down the list. Move this one to next month. Yeah. These are things we do. So the data analysis, you're analyzing the recorded data, the things that are observed, the things that are achieved are recorded. But you said you're not in the class, but how come you can write this kind of thing? In fact, that dog that ate your assignment, this excuse, is so funny. How would you say that? That the dog ate your assignment? What's the name of that dog, Seth? Is it Bingo? That's funny. It's okay. You didn't do your assignment. And you see, I've not even started asking of it because you're the only one in the class that I'm sure of doing it. Who else is in the house? Okay. Okay. Problem. We will settle that. Okay, Lachima is in. All right. And she wasn't in the last classes, so I think everybody here can be pardoned. But that dog must bring back your assignment. Give the dog a pen and a paper and the system to get it done. You must pay for what you have eaten. In this restaurant, nobody pays for another person. So we have that. And our output becomes what? The cost performance baseline. Now, the cost performance baseline is the authorized time phase budget at completion, BAC, budget at completion. It's used to measure. It's also used to monitor and control the overall performance on the project. I know Lachima will have some beautiful understanding in this area, but maybe where she is, she could be tempted to want to drag the mic off my mouth and now start, teaching the class. Yeah. Okay, but let me move on. Okay, let me hold my mic back to my mouth. So it is developed as a summation of the approved budget by time period, and is typically displayed in the form of an S-curve. Take a look at it. Can you see it? Take a look at this diagram. G, if where you are, you can speak, kindly on mute. All right? Yeah. Can you speak?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Can you see the diagram?
Yes, yes.
You see on the left-hand side, you see the cumulative, at the vertical side, right? You see the cumulative value, right? The arrow pointing up. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
And come down, can you see the time, right?
Yes.
If peradventure, this is a 90 days project this will be day 0 now, right?
Yes.
We move to day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Now take a look at it. Take a look at it. When we got to this point, assume here is day 8. Can you see where, sorry, my brother. Can you see this line? This line is called the cost baseline, the dark line, right? It's telling us that when we get to this point, the cost, the value of work expected and the cost could have been at this level, right? Are you seeing it?
Yeah.
And look at the funding requirement now. All the things I have explained. First of all, look at the cost baseline. The cost baseline, like I said, is the BAC. That is the budget at completion. Okay? But still yet speculating how much we will spend every day. So as the days goes by, what happened? It's increasing. The cost is increasing, right? It went down up to what? The BAC, the budget at completion, where that's the termination of the project. But take a look at the dotted line below. That dotted line is called expenditure. It shows that in real life, how much we are spending is lower than how much we planned spending, right? Please keep your mic unmuted. Sorry, if you can, just keep your mic unmuted. I need feedback in areas like this. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Okay, now take a look at it. You see that the expenditure that was low now started going up. All of a sudden, it went above the cost baseline, right? And the cost baseline is the planned cost now. It went
Yeah.
above it, which means all the activities carried out. Yeah, the team had an expertise in ensuring that cost stays down. You as a project manager, this is what you want to achieve. Maybe through your negotiating power, through your planning power, through the way you do certain things, you ensure that you keep things below the cost baseline, the expenditure, you keep it below. But now, what happens? It has gone up here. Then we have the funding requirements. According to our plan, at this point, at this point in time, we are expected to have spent which amount? Where do you find the amount? You come to the cumulative value. It could be finances, it could be cost written there. So really, okay. So as we move on, this is how much we are supposed to have spent. We are supposed to have spent. And even here, you see that there is a change.
So what is the reason for the spike in cost in expenditure?
Market changes in the market. But the first thing you must lay your hands upon is wrong focus, wrong planning. Do not think of any other reason. The reason or the only reason why your planned value would be different from your actual, the only reason why your cost baseline should be different from your actual should be force majeure. Because we expect you to have analyzed historical knowledge to look at how the economy has done so far. Look at the trends of changes. If your project is 4 years project, over the period of last 4 years, what is the percentage increase and percentage in reduction? What do? You use that to plan. So, okay, this portion of job that will be done in month 1, it can be $25,000. This same things we will do in month 2. Every month price changes with so and so percent, right? So you now say instead of $25,000, it will be, since it's what 10% increase, it will be $27,500 you have in there. But if you don't know, you went to go and spread it across, what are you going to be experiencing? You will experience this expenditure going above the cost baseline. Can you see where BAC is? BAC is the total budget, right? Yeah.
So what are your contingency costs now? Your contingency budget.
What do you mean?
Is that not what it is for?
No. You didn't hear the contingencies. Oh, you did not hear that. Let me check if it is down here so I can explain it. And when we get there, so I will not be rushing it.
Don't let me take you back. It's my first time of joining,
I
so
understand.
I
Calm
will
down.
read and catch up.
I understand. I will bring you up to speed. It doesn't matter. Your first time of joining can still be good, all right? Okay. When we get to end value, I can now talk about contingency. Let me find out if it's somewhere here. Though I've talked about it before several times, but I still want to take a look at it. This class may be longer than you think. You know why? Because this is big deal.
What time does it usually end?
Till my mother calls me.
We
Yes.
we have to make proper planning for the other things that need our attention as well.
No, if it's right in your time, we close very early. But if you are tired, you know what to do now. You can still watch the videos, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Is it on the same link to watch the video, or there's a different link for the video?
We drop them in the group. Okay, you can't
Okay.
see the videos, the past videos, right? You have not seen the past videos.
I just joined the group, so
Yeah, you joined the group or check, I posted them. But I will still post it
Hello.
again. All right.
I gotta go.
Oh, you gotta go. It's okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a funeral that
I
I
didn't.
attend.
How many minutes have we spent? Is it up to 1 hour? So let's call it a day here and start again, all right? In the next week.
okay. Just before we call it a day, just explain me that contingency. Then we can call it a day. Coming.
Okay. When we say contingencies, we have two kinds of contingency. It's a kind of reserve. You're with me, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. Contingency. Go ahead. Go
It's
ahead.
a kind of reserve.
No, I know what contingency is. I'm asking that when you now have this expenditure going beyond your baseline cost, at what point do you now use contingency to solve that problem? Is that not what contingency is for? It's just a question. That's all. It's just a simple question. Do you understand?
Calm down.
You don't understand. Okay.
I said
Your
calm down.
diagram shows where expenditure has gone beyond.
You're not coming down. Calm down.
Okay.
When you teach the whole world and you want to answer a question from one man, you're not talking only to that man. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And when you want to learn, you don't force out what you want to hear. Because when we go over it, somebody will learn and you too will learn something, even if you know it. All right?
No problem, sir.
Contingency cannot show here. That's why I want you to calm down because you're looking at expenditure going over planned, thinking that contingency will be used. The contingency is buried in the cost baseline also. We have two kinds of reserve, the contingency reserve and the management reserve. As the engineer coming up with the speculation, with the specification, planning the individual activities. I'm going to use construction project to explain that to you now. Just listen. You are supposed to build. And you are coming up with the individual material requirements. And you discover that you're supposed to use cement during raining season. And from historical knowledge, over every 10 bags of cement that is mixed, there is a wastage of one. So that is to say that in the real life, when you say 10, you should know in your head that one will be wasting. So if you find out that what is needed is 10, how many will you budget for? Can you open your mic and answer me? How many will you budget for?
11.
11. Beautiful. That 11 is what is showing in here. That's the cost baseline. So it has nothing to do with your expenditure going over. Are you getting what I'm saying? Because
Okay.
it's already declared with cost baseline. Like I said, two reserves, right? That is the contingency reserve that the planners, the project management team has in the individual estimate. So now the cost of that one additional cement is in the estimate. Then what is the management reserve? The management reserve. This budget has been declared BAC to the management. The management has looked at the cost baseline and said, it's $40 million, right? And the management now said, this team, we don't trust them. Yes, they have declared $40 million. What if they make certain mistakes? And why not we keep additional $10 million somewhere? Peradventure, certain things could have gone wrong. So we can go there and peel out some money to take care of that because we don't even trust them. They do even think they can do estimate well. They now went to go hire $10 million, whereas the budget has been declared what? As $40 million. But management has $10 million hidden somewhere. That is called the management reserve. So the contingency reserve is for the known unknown, which means things that we already know that may likely go wrong. That's why we already pad it as buffers. It's called buffers in the budget. It is part of this cost baseline that you're seeing. The contingencies are part of it.
Okay, got it. Got it.
Then the management reserve is not declared. It's not part of what you are seeing. Even me and you, the project manager and this team, may not even be aware that the project owners, the sponsors, have kept $10 million somewhere for the unknown, for an emergency that they cannot think of. The other one is for what? The contingency reserve is for what? Known unknown. The management reserve is for what? Unknown. Yes, they can see risk. Now, the contingencies are what we use as the risk mitigative strategy, the risk response strategies that are buried in the individual estimate as we move on in the cost baseline, in this S-curve as you see it. Now, what do we do to bring back the budget? It's not about spending more money like you think that's when you use your contingency is still money. We want to cut. Can you see that money has gone up? Do you think it is more money that you need to bring money down? Like I told you, it is money you want to bring down. So you want to use your contingencies. You want to spend more money. That's what you're saying. So we are good, right?
Yes, please.
This is the professional edge I'm blessing you with, all right? I've trained more than 5,000 persons in this domain. So I'm going to bless you tonight. Now, what do? We go back to planning. What are those conditions that are causing this spike? What are those conditions causing this spike? This is over the budget. It's over the budget. We need more money somewhere. And that more money is not in our hands. It's already what is in our hands is the tick line you're seeing. That is the cost baseline. This means that we will raise change requests. We want to raise change requests to tell them to cut off an aspect of the project off. We cannot afford it and tell them why. Or we want to beg management to give us what? Additional money. That is raising what is called the business case. We want to, that is what management of change will come in. Where you give them your justifications to request more money. And they will come in now and look at it and say, wow, okay, it's just a little aspect of this project. Now look at where the dotted line is crossing the tick line. There's an aspect of the job remaining, right? So you must come up with what is called the estimate to complete. Now you're seeing the budget at completion. From where this place is the problem, you experience the problem. You want to tell them this is how much could have been left to complete the project. But now we have a new BAC, which is the estimate to complete. A new estimate will be redrawn now. Because we have seen changes. The money we have left cannot cover the project. We want to go and look for money. We want to go and convince management. Let them go and look for money and ensure that this is, because it is only this aspect of the project that is left. And this will not take us more than additional 5% to complete it. So we must give them some justification. And the justification may be that let's review the project scope and remove this aspect of some of these things we want to do. In a place where we are supposed to plant golden doors, we may want to use steel doors. But we will show them the reason. Will the steel doors still do the same job? Get the same job done? That's what we do here. So this brings us. But before that, let me ask you, did you add any other thing to what you knew before?
Yes, please.
That's beautiful. I hope you're not just saying it because you want to make me feel good.
No, at all. If anything, the fact that I'm going through this terrible cold and I'm still on the call, you will know it's because I see value.
Sorry,
If not, yeah, we know